gentlemen, podcasting since 2005. You're listening to Gamertag Radio with your hosts, podcaster Hall of Famer Danny Peña, the always opinionated Paris Lily, and from outside of the norm, Peter Toledo. This is Gamertag Radio.
Now you're listening to Gamertag Radio, episode 1326, and on this episode, we're going to be talking about the new Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's coming out for the PlayStation 5 later this month, February 29th. Shout out to Square Enix for inviting me to be part of the event, the hands-on event, and it was a lot of fun. Great conversation with a lot of the creators over there in media, and we got to play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for about 4 hours or so. It was a blast. It was so much fun. I know right now the demo is out, which you should check it out right now. It's available on the PlayStation Store. And just download it, and let me know your thoughts on the next week's episode of Gamertag Radio. So I had this great discussion about the game with Michael Hyam. We had a great conversation about the game, the difference between 7 Remake and Rebirth. Great conversation overall, and I think you guys are gonna love this. And so let me know your thoughts. Remember, go right now to gamertagradio.com, listen to our past episodes. Also, you can find us on any podcast app. All you have to do is just search for Gamertag Radio. Search. Once we pop up, follow us, subscribe. And if you're on Spotify, make sure to check out our weekly poll that I have there. And I'm going to put a poll about this game, about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Are you planning to buy Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Yes, no, or maybe. Yes, no, or maybe. Go right now to the Spotify app and answer the poll, and I'll read it out during the next episode of Gamertag Radio. All right, if you would like to be part of our family discussion, hear how you could be part of it.
Send us your feedback or questions. Give us a call at 786-273-7GTR. Email us at fanmail@gamertagradio.com or leave a message on speakpipe.com/gamertagradio.
All right, so let's go with the discussion about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We'll be right back after this.
You're listening to Gamertag Radio.
All right, so we have a special guest, and we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that we got to play a couple weeks ago. This is the first time he's on the show. First time. We've been talking behind the scenes and other stuff. Yeah. Michael, welcome to the show, man. And introduce yourself for those that don't know you.
Oh, sure, yeah. First time, long time. Listen, I rock with GTR for a good long while, but yeah, Danny's a homie, Paris the homie. But it feels good to finally collab on something with y'all. I got into games media back in 2016 when I joined GameSpot. And since then, I feel like I've grown a lot. I've learned a lot about the industry, made so many good friends, like including you, of course, like seeing all these people at events, connecting through social media, putting faces to names, and just like chilling, even outside of games themselves. Like there's so many great people that I really do call friends. And I think that's one of the things that's like driven me in this industry is not like the work is great. Covering the industry has been wonderful. But the thing I always remember is like, yo, these are some dope people. Like, I live with Blessing Adeoye Jr. from Kind of Funny. Like, we was homies before he got to KF, and we're gonna be homies like outside of KF because like we literally have to live with each other. So it's just like connections like that have been so valuable in terms of like pushing me through the years. But of course, you know, things work out differently. I went to Fanbyte for a little while, for about a year and a half, and then I unfortunately things didn't work out there, so I started freelancing. Went back to GameSpot for a little while, freelancing again. So yeah, you will see my work still on GameSpot. Like again, so many great friends who still work there. Tamor Hussein, who's one of my best friends, he was my manager, and he's still kind of my manager. So still work with him closely, and you also see a lot of my work on IGN too. So yeah, I'm out here doing it, still going to events. I love what I'm doing, but yeah, it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time to do these sorts of things.
Hey,
but,
you gotta hustle. You gotta hustle.
Gotta hustle, man.
Right,
I learned that for sure. But yeah, for example, something like previewing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, it's one of the highlights of doing this. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, and I know that I know you got to play the original Final Fantasy VII, and you know the funny thing about that is when I remember when the game got announced, I thought it was just going to be exactly like the original. But a lot of people that haven't had the opportunity to play this, this is like has a new storyline and everything, and which I had no idea it was going to be like that, you know. So,
yeah.
But playing it for the first time, remake, I was like, you know what, I'm into this. I like this, and now with Rebirth, it's going to be a totally new storyline and everything there, man. So how was your thoughts of experience that for the first time playing remake and now with Rebirth for you?
Yeah. So Final Fantasy VII, the original on PS1, was one of the most important games in my life. And I think a lot of people, that's why 7 has such a strong, is just so well known across the board, people around my age, is because that was, for many, their first Final Fantasy, their first story-based game that was that deep in storytelling. And so a strong connection with my family. I watched my brother play it, then I picked it up myself when I was really, really young. So a formative game for many. And then so to all these years later, to see that same story, those same characters, that same world rebuilt from the ground up with the current gen fidelity we have today, it's wild that, you know, we see remakes often and remasters and things like that, but this is a reimagining. It is so much bigger than the PS1 game ever was, of course, but there's so much more life and depth to a world we thought we knew. And so that's the thing with remake, where you spend all this time in Midgar. Midgar was like a 5 to 6 hour section in the original game, and you have to move on to the next thing. Remake all of Midgar, but in a 30-35 hour thing. So you got to see how people live, how people move, what the sectors look like, what is it like to live in the slums. You spend so much more time there to see all of these things vividly and rendered in current gen that is almost lifelike. And then so these stories that we saw in polygons abstracted in our minds back in the PS1 days, those things feel so much more real now playing through remake. And I've said many times that I kind of can't believe this is real because of the history of 7 Remake. You know, this was announced so long ago, back when there was the PS3 was the current gen. And then so it went through a really weird development cycle. So a lot of us felt like this thing is never going to come out. This isn't real. So when Remake did come out and it was incredible, I think a lot of people were blown away by, you have high expectations and they were still met in some way. But I think what you also realize is that Remake, what's supposed to be a trilogy, is going in a completely different direction. And that's one of the most exciting parts for me, is because that original story was incredible. It's great. And if they retold that would have been fine. But they're doing so much more. They have the creative liberty, the creative freedoms, and a lot of the same creators from back in the day are in on this project, along with new, fresh blood who have different perspectives to tell a lot of the core themes, but in such a modernized way. And so that's one of the exciting things about Rebirth. It's okay, we had Remake for a while, but Rebirth is the part of the 7 story that opens it up so much wider. You go to so many different places. You have an overworld. How are they going to make that into in the foundation that they built on Remake? Because Remake was pretty contained, and now you're gonna go to these wild places where some really goofy things happen, but also it gets very serious and very dark in some spots, and it is ambitious for completely different reasons now. And then so we got a taste of that with the preview, and I think stepping into the grasslands, that open area,
that's wild, right? It's but here's the thing too, even before that, there's so much stuff that you could do, side quests. You could take your time even before going out there, right? And one question I was gonna ask you, I remember when Rebirth got announced, nobody was expecting that. Nobody. I was like, wow, that was pretty fast. I was like, wait, were you surprised when the game got announced? And I think correct me if I'm wrong. I think they did mention something about 3-disc or something like that in the trailer,
multi-disc.
right? Multi-disc.
Yeah.
I was very surprised about that. Yeah, that was really cool seeing that. But I'm very excited to even play more because I got to play the Tokyo Game Show demo. I don't know if you got the chance to. They had like a little private event at Square Enix offices, and that was pretty fun. Like seeing South Roth there, and also controlling it was awesome, right? And actually doing I know we had like a small sneak peek of the open world. That really got me excited about the game too. So yeah, I just want to hear your thoughts about that too, man. About the announcement and the open world stuff for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in a way it was one of those, like, before it got announced, it felt like any day now they can announce the second part of this remake, because they set a lot of the foundation with remake. It's you play remake and like, okay, they figured out gameplay systems, like characters, like scripting, voicing, like that was like their opportunity to set a strong foundation. They really did that. So then with the second installment, it's like, okay, now is their opportunity to use that same foundation but expand it in a way that is almost kind of incomprehensible. And I guess that's kind of what they did. So like the gameplay is very much true to what remake is, because like, well, that's the game. And you expect it as much, and they should like build on that, because that was a very good gameplay system in my opinion. But so yeah, the impressive part now is how much bigger it is. So you step in the demo we played, it's early on in the game, right? In this part of the story, you're at the town of Calm, and you kind of you're chilling there because you just escaped Midgar, and then you're being chased down, and then through your escape from the town, you step into the grasslands, which is one part of the overworld that is from Final Fantasy VII. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, this is what they're doing with the game. And so I think I am of two minds of this, though, where I am just blown away by the fact that this is what Final Fantasy VII is now. It's so much bigger than I thought it was going to be. And the world is so full of life. And that's the thing I loved about 7, is that even though it was a PS1 game that was kind of sparsely populated, it felt like there was so much like culture and identity with wherever you went. There's like stories about these towns and the people who live there, and they're so visually distinct wherever you go. So with this, like, I'm like, I can't wait to see all of this fully realized.
Yeah.
Like when you go to like the big towns, and they're just so much bigger than I thought they could be. It's impressive scale is what they're doing now. Like Midgar was impressive to look at in the background, but now that scale is being translated, it feels like, to the actual world that you are exploring. The second part to that, though, is there are open world conventions that 7 Rebirth is following from what we've seen. And like, I don't mind that stuff so much, but it's just the expectations might be a little bit different, where you're still kind of like activating these towers to open certain parts of the map. And then you have side quests that are like traditional side quests, and you have hidden chests in this corner of the open world, and you're like kind of traversing the open world in the same way you do for other open world games. And maybe that takes away a little bit of the mystique of what the 7 remake kind of is, but I think that is the context in which this game has to work with. And I don't mind that so much. I mean, we'll see how, like, I'm afraid that this game would be bloated. And I think that's a big problem that a lot of open world games have today, is that they're just full of stuff for very little reason. But I will say, like, if I'm judging off of what they did with remake, I think that the side content that they do implement will have value in that world. But again, we'll see. But for now, I'm kind of impressed by the scale of it all. For now, like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know if you experienced this, but during the demo at the event, I did a couple of things. I think I did like a side quest from from the Chocobo Ranch. I was there for a bit, did my thing there, and also even in the town too. I did the side quest of a card game. I don't know if you tried that, where you also have to compete.
Queen's Blood.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. So, of course, like traditional open world RPGs, the more side quests you do, it will help you to level up, right? Me, not thinking, I ended up to one of the final boss of the demo.
Yeah.
Kicked my butt. It was really, really tough. I'm like, man, I really got to take my time before getting there, man. But of course, the full game, I'm definitely going to be doing that. But I was just rushing because I just wanted to see what was coming up next, right?
Yeah.
But how was your experience trying out that boss, man? Because for me, there was maybe once that I got to like maybe mid of like his health, but that's like the closest I got to beating him. For me.
Yeah, that to me that was the game pushing back and be like, hey, listen, little boy, you ain't ready for this. And I do kind of like that when games do push back on you because I think there's a level of challenge that I like out of my games, and 7 Remake definitely has some challenging encounters in it. And it's a tough balance when you want to incorporate that into the main story because you want players to progress. You don't want to hold them up for too long on this sort of thing. But I do like the idea that, hey, you're trying to advance the story. You need to get through this big roadblock, and so it encourages you to think about the gameplay systems on a deeper level, but also maybe engage with the things around that world to start building up your characters, leveling up, getting new materia, being a bit smarter about how you build your party, how you control them individually. So I am fascinated to see how that plays out in the full game. And I think it's a tricky balance, but from what I saw there, I was like, ooh, okay.
Yeah, it's no joke, right?
Yeah, I'm getting cooked. I'm not going to lie. I was getting cooked. Our homie Moises Tavares I talked with him and he's just like, hey, listen, I cooked that fool. Midgard Storm. He's like, hey, wow.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But they warned us like, hey, this is the last part of the demo. If you want to continue doing side quests, it's going to stop. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back. I already got some footage from this battle.
Yeah.
But one thing I was going to ask too is like, I have a friend that he's huge. He's not a hardcore gamer. He's like, casual gamer. But one of the things that he loves is Final Fantasy VII from PS1. He played the remake game, loved it, right? He at first wasn't a fan of the battle system, how it is. It's not the traditional classic way of how to play Final Fantasy, right? But once he started playing it, he's like, oh, okay, this is my jam. I love this. This is really cool. He got used to it and everything, right? But for you, have you been trying the demo? Have you tried to play the default, or you also change it to classic just to see how it is very quick? Well, because I missed the opportunity to try that out. For me,
I think they did that for the original, or not the
for remake.
For remake, and Intergrade. But I never messed with it. But from my understanding is that it you don't have to worry about the action inputs, which I think is it's a great idea because I'm all for accessibility. Everybody should be, and so there are just some systems that might cause problems for certain people, and you still have that tactical edge of making the decisions of like what am I going to cast. What am I going to do with this characters when their ATB is filled up? How am I going to delegate their spells? So there's still a tactical element that it retains, and I think that's really important to the Final Fantasy identity. So that's still there. In terms of the action stuff, though, I stick with it, even though I will admit in remake it was kind of frustrating to kind of bang my head against the wall because I got to keep an eye on my ATB bars, but I'm also trying to dodge and keep combos rolling and then switching characters. So it can be overwhelming for sure. And so like, I would not blame anyone at all for going to like the classic mode or bumping down the difficulty because, you want the game to meet you on your terms. And I think the game is accommodating in that way, and it should be. But for me, I'm like, when the game starts to push back, I'm like, no, I'm gonna get you. You may have cooked me, but I'm gonna come back. And that is, I mean, I've said this about Final Fantasy in general. It's like you have 14 with the MMORPG, you have 16 pure action, and this one, which is like the really good balance of what Final Fantasy used to be and what it is today. So I think it's a really smart system that I'm glad that they're building on.
Yeah, I really enjoy that too, man. So now we have to talk about this, man. Your experience playing with Sephiroth for the first time. How was that? Because when I got to play it at the Square Enix office, I was like, yo, this is so tight. I'm really enjoying this. I think this is gonna be pretty good, man. So we're playing with him, having it part of your party the whole time? Do you change it up a bit, or how was the process for you, man?
Dog, I just play Sephiroth the whole
demo.
It's like, well, because
he's dope. He's really dope.
Yeah, he's dope. Like, because the thing too is, if you played the original, you kind of know that, you know, I mean, it's very much clear that he's one of the villains, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's as long as I get to control him, I'm going to control him as much as I can because he has some sick moves, man. And it really, this can't, like, the piece that we played in the preview demo, that can't be the only section that we control him in, because he has like a fully built out move set and spells and all these wild attacks, and like even him and Cloud have like a tag team attack, which is really sick.
Really sick, right? Yeah.
That shit, that is, it's cute.
Yeah,
It's kind of whimsical.
Yeah.
And like in the original, Sephiroth was controlled by AI, so you just like saw him do crazy things in battle for that flashback scene, and it really was like a storytelling device. But like this guy is so overpowered, you cannot even control him. But now it's like, hey, you have control of him, and he's still as overpowered as you always thought he was, because that is a storytelling device that I think they retain in such a fascinating way that, like, oh, I want to control him. I want to do, he got the longest sword. He's got range. He's doing all these wild attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I want to see more of that.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I know people are going to be asking questions about Final Fantasy and all this stuff. Like, how big was the open world, the part that we were at? Because I don't know how far you got to in the game. Where it's like, was it close to the ranch? You started experimenting, going other places, or what? Do you feel like the open world was alive compared like to the town, or you think it felt a little bit like dead in your opinion?
It's an interesting question because I think it retains that sense of scale from 7 where there wasn't much in between.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get an idea because, I went to the Chocobo Ranch, and then like I got the Chocobo and started running around to see what else was around there, checking the towers with Chadley. Then I went to the quest marker to fight the big swamp snake. But I think the thing that I did notice, though, is there's a lot more biodiversity, I think, to keep things a little bit more interesting. And there are points of interest along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things I'm gonna poke at when people do get the final game, like start poking around the world to see if there are some valuable things to extract from that. But it at the same time, I know that there's so much density to what we already expect from the story. So if the open world or the open areas are maybe lacking, I do think the game can make up for it in other ways. It's just one of those things where, like, we had maybe like a 3-hour demo with the game, and we barely scratched the surface. And I think
that was a sneak peek.
That world, you open the map, and you're like, oh snap, that's like one of the things. And so thankfully you get a Chocobo straight up, so it makes it a little bit easier to traverse that world. But you still, it's a lot of world to traverse, and there's the way the terrain is kind of funnels you in specific directions. So I think that might be a little frustrating. Like, oh wow, the map didn't tell me that there was a cliff here, so actually I can't cut across. So that might be, navigating that open world might be a challenge in and of itself. So hopefully it's built in a way to encourage exploration rather than like frustrate you with roadblocks. But that is something that will take hours to figure out.
Yeah, no, definitely. I also wanted to mention, we're going to wrap it up now, but the game looks really beautiful on the PS5. I played the remake and also got the PC version. And I hope, which I think most likely is going to happen, where Square's probably going to release this for the PC version, man. The only thing that I want, man, and this is like a huge request, please, ultra widescreen feature, please, because I have a remake, and it's not ultra wide. So
it doesn't do 21:9?
Nah, at all, man.
I hate
because I can imagine playing this game with my ultra widescreen. Oh man, that would be beautiful, man. Yeah, So, but the game looks fantastic. It looks really, really good, man. So, and it was good to see the team over there. Everybody got to interact with the producer, director of the game, taking pictures and everything. Like, I took advantage of carrying that the sword and Barrett's weapon too. I was surprised how heavy the weapons were.
Those were like lifelike in
really,
terms of
really
like
heavy.
Size and weight.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
definitely, man.
Barrett's gun. Like, you stick your arm in it to hold it up, and like, oh, this is this is a brick.
Yeah.
This is like a big chunk of metal.
Yeah. And one last thing too, man. So we were finishing our session, and once we were done, a lot of people were coming in for the next session. The whole voice cast that were there at the event. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know. I thought they were going to be at the event, but it's all good. It's all good. But it was fun.
It's cool to see.
Yeah. Michael, I just want to say, man, thank you so much. And you know what's really cool about this interview? I love that. I love you have your flag. I have my flag in the back. We always got that
let's go.
in the background.
You know what I'm saying?
We always got to represent, man. Always got to represent man, for our peoples, man. You know, so I'm glad to have you. And hopefully we could do more of these, man, because I know we've known each other for a long time, but I love these conversation interaction like this, man. I hope we could do this more in the future, man.
Absolutely. Hit me up. You know where to find me.
Yeah. So want to promote anything, your socials, anything? People can check it out and follow you. He's a great writer, by the way, for those who don't know. Amazing writer.
Thank you. A lot of people have been saying that. I'm starting to believe that.
You got to be up there, man.
Yeah,
it's good. It's good to see that, man.
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter at Michael P. Hyam and on Instagram at Hyam Michael as well. And you can see my work on GameSpot. I did the preview for 7 Rebirth for GameSpot, and also peep my Persona 3 Reload review on IGN. So I'm bouncing between GameSpot and IGN. I gotta play both sides. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, you gotta do your thing. Gotta get this money. Yeah, and so sometimes I'll see you kind of funny. You will go there and talk about certain games too. That's cool to see that, man. Yeah, awesome, man. Thanks, Michael.
Hey, thank you so much.
All right.
This is Gamertag Radio. Voicemail at 786-2737-GTR.
All right, so we're back here, Gamertag Radio, and shout out to Michael Hyam for being here in the podcast. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully we could do this again, man. All right, guys, thank you for listening to GTR episode 1326. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Gamertag Radio. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.